Good evening and happy Sabbath to everyone, and welcome to Florida. Maybe some of you are already living in this state, but we are glad that together we are here for a good purpose. Gather us together to meet one with the other, but also we are here to meet with the Lord. This evening we are going to spend a few moments on this title, Guarding the Heart and the Soul. And when we think about the heart, I know that everyone has a heart to guard. And how important is your heart for you? It's vital. As we read the verse in the beginning, it says that keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. So Sister Tony mentioned that it's very vital, the heart. And even this Bible verse mentions that this heart is vital. Why? Because out of it we have the issues of life. And in other translations it's mentioning that out of it are the springs of life. And if you look at your heart, if your heart will stop beating, what would it happen? There is no blood going in your body. So all that fountain of life for your body, it's ended. But if we think about the family, because we've been studying about the family last night and this day, the family also, we can say that it is the heart of society. And we know that strong families form strong society. Also, family is the heart of the church. And I'm sure that you saw those churches visiting from place to place, that if it wouldn't be for a family that is very dedicated, that church wouldn't survive. So the family, when it's strong, it's the heart of the church. And I asked the question, what it would happen if your heart is not beating for 10 minutes. The same happens even with the heart of society. The same happens even with the heart of the church. And it's very interesting because the Bible verse mentions that we need to keep it with all the diligence. And if we look at the body anatomy, how did the Lord design a protection for our heart? Where is the heart located? It's somewhere in the middle of the chest, as you can see there, behind the breastbone, and between the lungs, in a chamber there that is protected all about by the rib cage. So the Lord, when He put the heart in us, He knew how to protect it in such a way that even sometimes we have accidents. We fell or we fall or we have different accidents, yet the heart is protected there. So how about the spiritual heart? It says that out of it are the springs of life or the issues of life. And we remember the story from John chapter 4, when Jesus meets with this person. And this person is there to get some water. But Jesus is introducing to her a different kind of water. The water is, Jesus mentions that whosoever drinks from this water, what it will be the result of it? It will transform in the heart of those who receive it into a well of living life. Would you like to have in your heart a well of living life for others and also for your soul? Because we mentioned the physical heart. If it stops to beat for a moment, you cannot make it. So the same is even with the spiritual application to this case. Would you like to be a living fountain for your family or for your neighbors? Another thing that comes to my mind, the heart is like a storehouse. We cannot take out of it what we don't have there. So what shall we put in that heart in order to have this well? The living water that Jesus gives us, right? And if Jesus gives us this living water, we clean there and we prepare the soil for this water, we need to guard it. Because I will put you a picture here. These were our cows about 15 years ago, and every springtime we would plant a garden, because in the winters there you cannot grow a winter garden. But in the springtime, before we even plowed the land, we would make a fence round about the place where we wanted to plant. But even so, those fences were not strong enough. And if you are not carefully, these cows from the other side of the fence could go in and do that. So the same could happen even in our heart. If we do not protect it, if we do not guard it, it will look like this. Even though you had a good purpose, a good goal, yet it's going to look like that. How would you like your heart to be like? Like this? Or like this? In the same time, I have this image here. And you can tell here that this work is a continual work. I mentioned that in the springtime, we would make a fence round about the garden where we wanted to plant. But every day we would be in the garden, we would look around. So the same we have to do even with our heart, to look around every day. Because if it's a single gate that remains opened, you will find it like the previous image that I showed you here. Or if you don't go in that heart for ages, it will show like here. So what are the gates of the soul? And in the book Adventist Home 401 says that all should guard the senses, lest Satan gain victory over them. For these are the avenues of the souls. So if you look at this image, these are the 5 senses, the 5 gates that Satan can go in to our heart. And when he goes in, he will take possession of all your body. And I would like you to meditate upon this image here. Do you know what's this? These are the ruins of Babylon, that great empire that you studied in Daniel, in the book of Daniel. And if you remember about in the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, when the kings that were in Babylon, that city was really like a fortress, was really strong. That strong that they even had those gardens upstairs. You go up and you walk in the garden like you are in a farm. Yet, the end, we see just this. And do you know how this Babylon, a great city, was conquered? In Daniel chapter 5, we see that they have a great feast there. It was King Belshazzar. He made a great feast. And in the same night, you can read the entire chapter, but by the end of the chapter it says that in the same night, this king was slain. So Babylon was conquered, and since then it looks like this. And do you know that when this king was defeated, King Cyrus didn't even fight against them. So they conquered without even fighting. Their mistake was that they accepted the invitation to go to the party, but they left one of the gates open. And those gates I mentioned that this city was well protected, but there was some water going through the walls of the city, so the city would have water. They would have those iron gates that they would let them down, so no one could go in through the water. But at this moment they saw that everything looks peaceful around. So we should not bother to close this also. And King Cyrus came and he deviated the water, and this way they were able to go into the city. And because all of them were drunk, they got the victory without any battle. So the same could happen even in your life. Just one gate, if it remains open for Satan, he will enter in, and you don't even realize how did he get there, and you won't even realize that he took possession of everything. In Adventist homepage 401 says that you will have to become a faithful sentinel over your eyes, ears, and all your senses. If you would control your mind and prevent vain and corrupt thoughts from staining your soul, the power of grace alone can accomplish this most desirable work. And it continues in page 403. The Apostle Peter sought to teach the believers how important it is to keep the mind from wandering to forbidden themes or from spending its energies on trifling subjects. Those who would not fall a prey to Satan's devices must guard well the avenues of the soul. They must avoid reading, seeing, or hearing that will suggest impure thoughts. The mind must not be left to dwell at random upon every subject that the enemy of soul may suggest. The heart must be faithfully sentineled, or evils without will awaken evils within, and the soul will wander in darkness. And you remember that there is the Bible verse that mentions that you were at once a child of darkness, but now you are a child of light. Walk ye therein in the light. So I mentioned that we have these gates of the soul. Satan knows on which gate he could have success, and he will try to go through there. And we don't have time this evening to go through all of those, but let us take just one and analyze it, because I believe that at least sometimes we might all be in the same situation. And I looked around, and as you notice, I have on my phone I have a case that you open it and you can put your credit card and your license. Do you know why did I do that? Many times I found myself driving, and I would see a police car in my mirrors, and I would think, well, maybe he is going to pull me over, so let me prepare my license. I would look around, my wallet wasn't there. But I would never forget my phone. So for that reason, I bought a case, so I put my license there and to be always prepared. And I looked around today and I saw that many of you are doing the same. I don't know what's your experience, why you have your cards or things in your phone case, but I believe that Satan got us into a trap. And here we have one of the gates of the soul. And if we think about David, he was praying, "Turn away mine eyes from beholding vanity, and quicken thou me in thy way." And I mentioned about the phone. We can do a bunch of wonderful things with it. I have all the books of the Spirit of Prophecy here and different Bible translations. Yet, if you are not carefully, Satan can go through this into your soul. And 30, 40 minutes later, you find yourself scrolling down on Facebook or reading some other emails, even though your initial thought was just to work on your sermon, or you name it. If we think about the early Christians, it says that they were often called to meet the powers of darkness face to face. By sophistry and by persecution, the enemy endeavored to turn them from the true faith. At the present time, when the end of all things earthly is rapidly approaching, Satan is putting forth desperate efforts to ensnare the world. And we see that the early Christians, they were meeting the powers of the darkness face to face often. How was it in that time? They were persecuted. They had different hard times. But how many of you are persecuted today? Yet, we see the powers of darkness day by day. And Brother Peter mentioned earlier today that so many ads come up on your phone, or the emails. You get one good email and 200 spams. We don't meet the powers of darkness by persecution, but every day, even before we go to work or before we go to wash our face, our eyes, we check what time is it, or we looked at it first. He is devising many plans to occupy minds and to divert attention from the truths, essentials to salvation. In every city, his agencies are busily organizing into parties those who are opposed to the law of God. The arch-deceiver is at work to introduce elements of confusion and rebellion, and men are being fired with a zeal that is not according to the knowledge. And I mentioned that we need to guard the heart of the soul. The heart and the soul. One of the gates that Satan has success, and you can name all the ages, young, children, adults, and even old, it's the scythe. And every one of us is facing the powers of darkness daily through a computer, through a phone, or different other things. And they made a study, and it says that about 45% of teens say they are online almost constantly. And this happens with the teens, with the children, but it's amazingly that even the parents, the adults, it says that the parents, they spend here in America on an average of 8 hours a day looking on the screens. It says that the average American spends 65% of their waking hours doing what? Consuming media. They spend 4.7 hours on the smartphone every day. And look at that. It says that, and checks their phone how many times? 80 to 150 a day, and somehow manages to watch even 4 hours of TV. So how much sleep can you have if you already used that time doing those things? Yes. And sometimes it's interesting that you hear around someone getting a notification and you think that it's you, so you take the phone to look at it. Sometimes you don't even hear it, but in your mind is telling you, take it and see if someone texted you or called you. And it says that also children spend less time outside each day than prison inmates do in the United States. Because the inmates, they are guaranteed to spend 2 hours every day outside. But many times the children spend even less than an hour. And I remember the time when I grew up. Especially in the winter time, we loved the snow and to be with the other children. Our parents would have to come to beg us to go in. But now it's the opposite. They spend more time on the devices than talking to the parents. And do you know what is going to be the result of such an education? It's 2 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 to 4 says that this know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. And in the book Glow Kids by Dr. Nicholas Kardaras mentions that majority of the children who come with different symptoms, like they are depressed or they are experiencing anxiety, all of this results from watching too much the screens. And And also it says that we now know that those iPads, smartphones, and Xboxes are a form of digital drug. And recent brain imaging research is showing that they affect the brain's frontal cortex, which controls executive functioning, including impulse and control. And we know that where are we supposed to receive the seal of the living God? In the forehead. And if we are not carefully with these devices, then we might fall in the trap, and our brains are going to be affected. And Mind, Character, and Personality, Volume 2, page 711 says that through the channel of mesmerism, Satan comes more directly to the people of this generation and works with that power, which is to characterize his efforts near the close of probation. The minds of thousands have thus been poisoned and led into infidelity. So what is that word, mesmerism? Yes, it's like hypnotizing. And how is that happening into our generation? You just open a screen, turn on a screen, and in a few seconds everyone is going to be quiet. And I mentioned this, that so far I mentioned about the children. But sometimes, and also Brother Peter mentioned earlier, you go to a restaurant and couples, they spend more time looking on their phones than talking to each other. They got to when the restaurants got to paint their walls, we do not have Wi-Fi. You should talk to each other and pretend it's 1995. And that problem is happening even here. I remember that since I came here, everyone comes and asking, do you know the Wi-Fi password? And I don't know the Wi-Fi password. So even the parents get to be affected by this. And can you imagine what would the child feel when the parents are there and not showing love? The children might want to talk to their parents, to play something. Yet the parents would give them something and they would be on their phone. It got to such that even I read this on the news. It says that a Korean couple nurtured virtual baby while real baby starved to death, says the reports. So they had a video game where they were raising up a baby while their real baby was suffering, didn't get love, didn't get food, didn't get what it needed until it died. So just to understand what media does to our brains, we have here some lines of the way our brain thinks. And you can see the first line there, which is beta waves, which is typically the normal state of mind. It's critical thinking, moral filter, self-control. But, and then you can see the other ones that go from worst to worst. And the study says that after just 30 seconds of watching television, the brain begins to produce alpha waves, which indicates torpid, almost comatose rates of activity. And you remember the word mesmerism. Just after 30 seconds, when you watch television, and we don't have television today, but you might see an ad, that ad would bring you to another ad, and those 30 seconds are enough to captivate you. And your brain will go from active to this until it gets here, when it says that it occurs in deep sleep or unconsciousness. It's like you are watching a wall and you are sleeping. Your mind doesn't filter anything. It says that when you watch TV, you passively absorb all the information without being aware of it. Later, when your brain needs to decide about something, it automatically trawls your mental database for relevant information. Your brain doesn't differentiate between information received from the real world, or TV, or movies, or video games, or whatever. This information dictates your responses to any stimuli. And it happened in 2018 in Seattle, Tacoma International Airport, when this flight came and it was supposed to be prepared for the following flight, yet the people from the control tower saw the plane preparing its way to take off. They tried to talk to the pilot, yet no one would answer, no one would reply. The plane took off, and after, the pilot, the person that was in charge of that airplane, called accepted to talk to these people in the control tower. And the question that he had, how do I know how much fuel I have? Imagine being a pilot and you don't know how much fuel you have or where to look for fuel. And they tried to encourage him to bring the plane back, but after a few seconds, this is how a few moments before it crashed. They made research on this person, and they found out that it was just on one of the employers, that he was addicted to video games, and he thought himself wise enough to fly a real airplane. So you see that what we read here, that when you watch TV, or I mentioned you play video games or watch movies or whatever you do, the brain cannot make a difference between the information that you get in the real world and the false world, the world that imaginary, like shooting and all kind of stuff. And when you are in the time to take a decision, the brain brings all the database that you have, and you will make decisions according to what you have in your mind. Yet there is a hope. And I mentioned about the children being addicted to this. In this book, Reset Your Child's Brain, mentions that a lot of children came with all these symptoms, anxiety, ADHD, and depression, and bipolar. And to all of them, it was prescribed one treatment. And that treatment was 100% abstinence from media for 3 weeks. And do you know what was the result? It says that 80% have the majority of their symptoms disappear. 50% of all of their symptoms disappear. So screen time is a contributing factor to virtually all of the children she has treated. Brother Peter mentioned about fasting this morning. Fasting from social media. So if you want to guard the heart of your children, the heart of your family, the heart of even the heart of your church, because I mentioned that strong families form strong churches. We need to start fasting. And the promise that we have in Malachi chapter 4 verse 6 says that, "And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and I smite the earth with a curse." I mentioned before that we are living already in a generation when children, if you give them what they want, they don't even care if they have parents or not. The parents, if they have their Facebook or whatever they like, they even forget that they have children. Yet the promise is that in the end, the Lord will turn the heart of the fathers back to the children and the heart of the children back to their fathers. And also, your spouses need quality time. And I don't have much experience in the marriage life, but even on my short experience, I learned something already. You know, there was this person that she postponed for some reason the studies, and I was supposed to study with her every Tuesday. So every Monday I would try to contact her to see if I can make the appointment for the next day. Until one week when she finally said, "Yes, you can come for the study, but I cannot Tuesday, I cannot Wednesday, you should come on Thursday." And as soon as she mentioned Thursday, I had a bad feeling already. Because I knew that that's my day off, and if my wife will hear about it, probably she might not be happy. And at that moment I was thinking, well, I can spend time with her in the morning. At 1 o'clock I go to the study, I come back and I keep spending time with her. That was on Monday, and I was thinking maybe I should not mention anything to her not to be in trouble, you know. So I got home, and the same day, the same evening, she comes and she tells me that, "Look, I made already some preparation for your day off, so we can do this and we can do that." She came with all that list. And I was thinking, well, I cannot do it because in the middle of the day I have to be here in town. And then she looked at me, you imagine how happy she was, and she asked me, "But when it's your day off?" Then another time I noticed that she wasn't happy. And before she left to go to work, she told me that, "I don't know why, but I feel lonely." And she left, but it took me a while to think, why is she thinking she's feeling lonely? Because I'm there always when she comes back. Yet, I realized that many times, as I mentioned, you get something, notifications, and it might be good, like from my brother, or someone will call you. And instead of being there, you are somewhere else. So since then, I just turned off all the notifications, and the apps that I didn't need, I just deleted them, and everything improved. But what I want to mention about this, if you want to save your family, and I'm addressing that even to those who think that their family is stable, you need first to put away your phones. More than that, turn off the TV. Listen to what your spouse is saying, because even during that time when I was checking my email, I was pretending to listen, but not understanding what she was mentioning. Ask questions about what they said. Allow a pause between what they say and what you say so that you can have a bit of time to really think about it. And more than that, don't allow distractions while talking. Just listen. And we need to guard our quality time. It was good that I was able to go to study with that person. But what good to save the entire world but lose your own? And we should respect the time off, because we are always working, going to office. Some of you might go to office every day. But when you are home, Don't bring the office with you on your phone or on your computers. In Adventist Home, page 192 says that let the parents devote the evenings to their families. Lay off care and perplexity with the labors of the day. Let the evenings be spent as happy as possible. Form a home reading circle in which every member of the family shall lay aside the busy cares of the day and unite in study. And going back to David, in Psalms 191, he mentions that, I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. So may this be our prayer, because we both this for a good reason, to keep in touch with our families, or to do other things, important things with them. Yet, let us keep the balance. Let us, if you need, pray before using them. Because it takes only 30 seconds and Satan will take control of you, and you might lose your family, and you might lose also your own soul. May the Lord help us that we keep this prayer alive in our mind.